Wow. Absolutely breaking news in the UFC. I got 3 things that I want to go over. But first, my most favorite, Cain Velasquez. If you haven't seen, Cain Velasquez is eligible for parole. Finally! Finally! As early as of March, Cain Velasquez can be walking out of jail, no longer serving time, will be out of jail serving the rest of his sentence at home with his kids, with his family. After everything that went down back, back in March of 2022, there's a man, his name is Harry Galarte, a guy who still, to this day, still doesn't have his trial set until March. This is a guy who's been out, who molested Cain Velasquez's son, allegedly. But, I mean, everybody basically knows he did it. Now we're going to see, how the trial and everything goes. But Cain Velasquez's son claims that this guy, Harry Galarte, who was working at the daycare center that Cain Velasquez was dropping his kids off of, was sexually molesting him. Yup. And as soon as Cain Velasquez found this out, I guess the kid told him, he was putting them to bed or something like that. The kid told Cain Velasquez exactly how it went down. Cain Velasquez absolutely got pissed the hell off, got inside his car, drove over to the dude's house. But Harry Galarte and his father and his stepmother hop into the car. They go on this high-speed chase on the freeway. Cain Velasquez chases after them, pulls out his gun, starts shooting at the car, actually shoots the stepfather, the stepmom and stepfather who actually own the daycare center where their son, Harry Galarte, worked, molesting Cain Velasquez's son. Now, I don't know how many other kids or whatever else is going down with that. But when all that went down, Cain Velasquez was the one that went to jail, had to serve time, eventually got out, and barely in 2025 of March, finally got his sentence of 5 years, but they gave him 3 years of credit because the situation happened back in 2022. He had 2 years to serve left. They said he'll be eligible for parole in 2026, and that's what we're dropping. This is absolutely great news to finally get to this point in everything that's been going down. But the fact that that dude is still out there, after all this has went down, Cain Velasquez serving his time, still a free man, awaiting trial in March. Man, it's absolutely breaking news. I'm just so glad that this is all finally coming to an end. Cain Velasquez survived. I don't know how many times he had to duke it out in jail, if the dudes gave him respect. He's a really respectful guy. One of the greatest heavyweights in UFC history. You can't lie about that, right? So this is breaking news, man, and I absolutely love to hear it. Now, sad news to me, not only for Shavkat Rachmanov, but also Brandon Moreno. I want to start off with Shavkat Rachmanov. Wow, man, it's official. He is done, at least for right now, in the UFC, as the UFC officially drops him out of the rankings. No longer is Shavkat Rachmanov, who used to be ranked #1, but recently was ranked #2 in the welterweight division, 19-0. Hasn't fought since December of 2024. Was 1 fight away from competing for the welterweight championship of the world, beating Ian Gary, a guy who's right on the doorstep as well. Has officially, he didn't drop this news. We caught the news of him walking with the goddamn crunches on. It looked like his leg was wrapped all around, like if something serious happened.
Shavkat Rachmanov белсенділік жоқ болғандықтан міне Shavkat Rachmanov экрандарыңызда ардақ жанкүйерлер.
And it turned out he recently underwent surgery for the same goddamn knee that he just had surgery for. I guess he re-injured it, my people. Shavkat Rachmanov, once again, like I said, having been out the ring for a whole year, the last 2 years has been absolutely horrible for him. Not only in the aspect of, him having injuries and him not being able to fight, him losing out on money, but also his wife and his kids being involved in a fatal car crash. If you don't remember, Shavkat Rachmanov's wife, I guess, was driving this vehicle. She had 2 other adults in there with, I think, just one of her kids, maybe 2 of her kids. I think it was one of her kids. They accidentally crash. The 2 adults pass away. The wife and the son survive. Shavkat Rachmanov's kid survives. And, of course, just imagine how bad that had to be. And then to see this, absolutely, his knee injury come up and him not even be in the rankings no more. Now, I do think he's in the UFC still. I see people asking the question, is he still in the UFC? I think he is. I think 9 to 10 months from now, when he returns, possibly in the end of 2026 or in the beginning of 2027, we will see Shavkat Rachmanov back in the UFC ring. It's just so sad to see, him be so good as he is in his prime, on the doorstep of getting a welterweight title shot. But now, having all these setbacks, all these goddamn surgeries, the goddamn shots that Ian Machado Gary was landing to that goddamn knee. Ugh. I wouldn't say it's dirty because at the end of the day, it's legal in the UFC. But I do know that you actually can't do that in amateur bouts. It's a dangerous move. You could absolutely end somebody's career like that. And that's what it looks like is happening. So as big as that's sad, I know it's a sad thing. It is really good for the welterweight rankings and the division because Shavkat, like I said, was one of those guys that was stuck right there in the top 3 at all times, but you knew he wasn't gonna fight. So finally that they took him out, we can get things rolling. We can get this goddamn division rolling. We got guys like Carlos Prates, Michael Morales, who are ready and hungry to fight for this world championship fight against Islam Makhachev. And now that Shavkat Rachmanov's, name is out the way, one less person to worry about. So, as sad as it is, it's also a good thing for the welterweight division, and I'm sure it's a good thing for Ian Machado Gary. Now, Brandon Moreno? Why? February 28th, he was supposed to be fighting, headlining UFC Mexico in Mexico City, going up against the number 7th ranked flyweight fighter, Asu Amabayev. Now that Asu Amabayev has pulled out, who is Brandon Moreno gonna fight next? This is devastating news. Depending on if they give him a high caliber opponent, if there's even any available, being that he was preparing for a fighter like Asu Amabayev, coming off a loss to Tatsuro Taira, devastating fashion in round 2. I look at the rankings and I try to assess it and I say, who's next, man? You got Alexander Pantoja, who's ranked number 1, who's coming off that loss to Joshua Van, first round, freak injury. You thought it was his elbow that freaking popped out of place. It turned out it was shoulder. We've been seeing recently that he's actually recovering a lot faster than what we expected. It seems like him and Joshua Van are more than likely going to be competing in a rematch. Of course, Alexander Pantoja deserves to have an automatic title shot. And it's either going to be in March, April, May, or June. Okay, I think it might even be at the UFC White House card, depending on how fast Alexander Pantoja is able to recover. But he's doing pull-ups. Everything looks completely fine. He didn't have to do surgery. So it's absolutely great news for them. But you keep going down the rankings. You got Manil Kape, who's ranked number 2. Tatsuro Taira, who's ranked number 3. Are they going to possibly fight against each other? Brandon Moreno hasn't fought against Manil Kape yet. Will they put Manil Kape in that slot? I don't think so. Because I think with Alexander Pantoja and Joshua Van going at it, I think Manil Kape and Tatsuro Taira should be slated in to fight against each other. I think that's a great fight. I think that's a great interim fight if they decide to do that. Now, anyways, moving on. You got the number 4 ranked fighter, Brandon Royval. You can't give Brandon Moreno Brandon Royval because he's already lost to him. And you don't want to do that in Mexico City once again. Especially Brandon Moreno coming off a loss. So, you can't do that. You got Brandon Moreno ranked number 5. Amir Albazi ranked number 6. Somebody Brandon Moreno's already beat. Brandon Moreno's fighting. Isn't it Amir Albazi fighting Hiraguchi, and Hiraguchi's freaking right there ranked as well, my friends. You got Tim Elliott. Dude, who is this guy gonna fight next? I honestly look at this division and I say it either has to be a Manil Cop, but I think that's messed up to do to Brandon Moreno. I think that sucks if you do that at Mexico City. I think it's time that we get some winners over there. You try to set him up for a winner fight. So I say maybe you give him somebody like Tim Elliott. You know, I don't think you give him a Tagir Ulanbekov, who's also ranked in the top 15, because Tim Elliott's already beat him. Brandon Moreno has still yet to fight Tim Elliott. Tim Elliott has fought a bunch of dudes in the flyweight division, including Davidson Figueroa. So I like that fight. Mexico versus USA. I think that's a great one. I do know, you know, Tim Elliott's a little further back in the rankings. Maybe Brandon Moreno would like to fight somebody a little bit better, but at the same time, in Mexico, screw it. Screw it. Pay him the same amount of money he was going to fight Asu Amabaya. Who cares? Let's do it. Tim Elliott is coming off a win. So I actually like that. I don't think there's anybody else you could book him with. You can't book him with Steve Ursa, because Steve Ursa is another fighter who's not ranked. I mean, who's ranked in the top 15 of the flyweight division, but doesn't have a scheduled fight. Brandon Moreno's already beat him. He's already beat Steve Ursa. You can't give him Lona Kavanaugh, ranked number 15, or Bruno Silva, ranked number 14. Look at the rankings. What do you do for Brandon Moreno? It is a tough time. As Asu Amabaya pulls out of this fight, I really hope they don't feed Brandon Moreno to an absolute killer for UFC Mexico City. But let me know what you guys think, man. This is the MMA Boxing Addicts channel. A bunch of things going down. Cain Velasquez on parole. Shavkat Rachmanov out for another year. And Brandon Moreno looking for a new opponent.